Darts is not my strong point here. But by the end of all this, Owen, I will remember that the number to get in touch with us is 087 9180 180. And if you're obviously hurler abroad, then you can get in touch with us plus 353
Hmm.
879 180 180. It's catchy, Owen. It's catchy.
It's very catchy. Actually, it's a good point. I'm sure you'll be tuning in whenever Raymond van Barneveld and Phil Taylor have their virtual matchup, because of course, like it's a sport that can go ahead as long as each and every person is kind of solitary confined to actually keep a room to themselves. So little camera in each of their rooms, and they're going to take each other on in a virtual darts game. So I'm sure your eyes will be glued to that in a few weeks' time or whenever it's happening.
So how does it work? They just film themselves and you. Uh, uh,
Yeah, like a live stream, like it's and they
two.
will wait for each other to take their turn. To be honest with you, I haven't looked into the precise logistics of it, but I assumed that that is how it would go. I was thinking to myself, how would I organize a darts competition against Phil Taylor or Raymond Barneveld? And I think with the modern technology, it would actually be pretty easy. Like I could take you on in the game of darts right now, and the rules of the game could be upheld fairly well, I would have thought.
As in, it's the only sport that you can really do, and you don't need to be in the same room with somebody, and it will be completely the same because there's no stress or pressure, and it's not actually a sport, is what you're saying.
Well, no, you could do golf as well.
Could you really?
Absolutely, on two separate courses if you wanted to
Well, then it's not
say
the same
totally differently.
course. Then they're not
Oh yeah,
playing.
sorry. Good point. Good point. Good point. Good point. So you okay? Yeah, I will come up with something. I'll come up with something that is like that. Maybe like a free throw competition in basketball or something, or a slam. If you want to do the All Star weekend in the NBA, like the slam dunk contest and the 3 point contest, you could make that happen.
Yeah, definitely. So several golfers have holes at their properties where
Mm.
we could map them out and we could all play them on PlayStation while they were actually playing them, walking around with a virtual reality headset. Going, ooh, would that work?
It certainly could. It's certainly a little bit dystopian, but I think everything kind of feels dystopian at the moment. Like, does any golfer actually have kind of a full course out their backyard, or is it just kind of little sections here and there?
Jim Nance has a
Because
couple of holes from Augusta rebuilt in his back
oh
garden,
wow,
as far as I know. So if he's got that, you can assume that some of the best players in the world probably have their own. I don't. You wouldn't need a full course because that would just be you'd get bored of it and it would be
Mm.
expensive. You could have like 4 or 5 holes and that would just be perfect, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I'm sure we're going to play this Patrick Harrington video later on, but he's certainly been showing off his back garden golf course. His kind of mid-range game has certainly been helped quite a lot by what he's got going on in his house.
Yeah, I always thought he had an indoor facility. For some reason, I had a vague recollection of reading a piece with him a couple of years back, which talked about there being a big indoor facility so that he could train. The inclement weather had no impact on his ability to be the best golfer in the world, which was obviously important for him at one point or another. How are you getting on, Owen? What were your anxiety levels like over the weekend?
Not too bad, actually. Not too bad. I think I'm getting the hang of this thing now. I think I'm getting the hang of it to the point where the key is to not do very much at all. I think a lot of us have been swept away in this wave of trying to be extremely productive. And there might be a little bit of productivity shaming going on in the world right now, saying, oh, gardened my entire property there, 400 acres. Green Fingers O'Connor here has shown me up yet again, trimming everything and planting loads of seeds, all that sort of thing. And people have cleaned rooms, cleaned houses, and fair play to them. They've sorted bookshelves, whatever it may be. I have done nothing. I have done absolutely zero when it comes to these sort of so-called productive things over the last week or so. And the weekend, I actually decided that that is okay. I'm going to be okay with that. Like we're still thankfully fortunate enough where we can walk outside in this house. I will be cleaning my house once I have to stay indoors. Now I know a lot of people who went outside kind of took the liberty of going to the beach or going to incredibly crowded areas over the course of the weekend, which is obviously not an amazing situation either. But yeah, my weekend was kind of just getting used to being okay with not doing very much at all, which I'm obviously being tongue in cheek when I say that, but I think that there might actually be kind of a serious point there as well that maybe we are getting a little bit carried away about crap. We have to do stuff. We absolutely have to do stuff because this is our one chance to sort the house out or whatever it may be.
Yeah, or teach the kids Spanish or Spanish guitar
Yeah,
or guitar, and it's like, well, maybe if they could all just be happy in themselves as we get through this global pandemic, huddled together. trying just desperately to survive, that might be okay too.
Absolutely. Like, there's certainly a temptation there to, like, I completely see what you're saying with kids, but even for ourselves, a lot of people who don't have kids, it's like, do I download Duolingo and become better at French than I already am? Do I put that undue pressure on myself? Is it something that I want to do? Would that actually make me happier by downloading Duolingo and learning a bit of French this evening? If the answer to that question is yes, then absolutely do it. If the answer to that question is no, then absolutely do not do that thing. It's quite simple, actually. Do I want to do it? Will I get enjoyment out of that thing right now? I think they're very important questions rather than will this make me a better person? Now is not the time to think about how to make yourself a better person. I think this is just my opinion. I think it's a time to actually do what makes you feel a better person and or feel like you're actually a happier person.
But you're missing out on the ability to brag about it on Instagram or whatever social platform you've chosen to tell everybody about how great you are.
Here, listen, getting to watch 5 seasons of Better Call Saul in 5 days is achievement enough for me right now.
How far along are you?
I'm not finished season 2 yet, actually. For somebody with all the time in the world to binge, I actually haven't got that far at all. Like, I've had other distracting things going on in my life, like binge watching Dream Team. So life is busy right now, I think it's fair to say.
And when are you going to finish binge watching Dream Team? What stage are you at? If people are following this on our social channels and on your own, of course, how far along are you in the Dream Team binge?
I think I'm like into episode 50 something from season 1 at the moment.
Right.
So I watched a good few over the course of the weekend, but I don't know. There wasn't enough happening.
At some point, are you going to give up? I mean, this is the whole point. You can just give up.
Well, see, this is where the competitive spirit in me comes out, and I don't think I'm going to be defeated by Dream Team. If I'm going to park everything I just said, and I'm going to finish Dream Team. Dream Team is my learning French on Duolingo. I think it is. It does.
It's making you anxious now that you haven't finished it.
Hell or high water comes to mind when I think about Dream Team and finishing this whole thing at this point. So yeah, like did a couple of episodes of the course of the weekend. That the last article I wrote was on the back of a particularly dramatic time, as in like one of the most stupidly absurd conclusions to a run of episodes I've ever seen. So everything from that point has kind of been post the apex, sort of. So I just need to kind of recalibrate my idea of what a television show should be. Might try and get another piece up today or tomorrow.
Is Carl Fletcher in it at the moment?
Yes, he is. Bit of a player with an A rather than an ER at the end. Carl Fletcher. He's a bit heartbroken actually at the moment. His girlfriend has gone off to work for Sky Sports, so she's not around anymore. So poor Carl.
Did she was going out with the manager at one point as well? Is there a love triangle between the manager and the?
No, it was the star player Dean Hocknell, and she also had an affair with the club chairman who had a heart attack and died.
Okay, club chairman, sorry, not the manager. And is there a Karen Brady figure in it as well? Is the new chairman?
Well, the chairman is now the widow of the guy who had a heart attack. So maybe she is the Karen Brady. I haven't really seen many comparable qualities. Like, for example, she hasn't called for a season to be called off midway through. That's a topical joke right there in Karen Brady. But no, I don't know. I don't know who the Karen Brady figure is, but I'm sure there might be more because I think she's looking to sell her shares in the club actually. But this is all an area of unknowing. I'm sure countless people out there will be able to correct you on that one. I'm a mere novice at this thing.
Yeah, okay. So Owen is committed to that, even if it is the thing that tips him over into insanity. He's going to continue watching, as opposed to just giving it up because you're bored of it by now. But we're going to do Better Call Saul at some point very soon.
Yes. Very soon you'll see this tomorrow morning on OTB AM. We're going to do this season by season, and by the time we're finished this, I think season 5 should be wrapping up. It's obviously about midway through at the moment on a week by week basis. A television show that is releasing episodes on a week by week basis. Who would have ever thought of that idea?
It is a bit mad when you think about it, and you got to put yourself in that context as well. Okay, talking about Karen Brady, I'm pretty sure that John Hartson has called for Rangers to concede the title to Celtic for this year, the 9 in a row. Just to concede it because they weren't going to win it anyway, which is a fair point, but I do like the fact that he's using this opportunity to keep up the petty bitterness that has pockmarked that rivalry between Celtic and Rangers down through the century and a half that it's been around. I mean, what else is a global pandemic for but to get one over on your small town local rival?
I actually I hadn't seen this from John Hartson.
It's just in the papers today, so I don't want to misquote him, or I'm sure he's being very reasonable about the whole thing, but the headline itself suggested that it was like, well, yeah, just give us the league, lads, come on.
It's is there some sort of peace offering that they also have to make? Are they going to meet them at some sort of undisclosed location in Glasgow where the Rangers Chiefs bow down to Celtic superiority? What is it? Is this going to be? Is this going to be the 9 in a row, right? Or 10 in a row?
9 in a
9 in a
row.
row.
Yeah, so
So
9 in a row
yeah,
is obviously the figure that is historic
Rangers have
because
done.
it's been done before. I mean, if this one is voided and then they'd have to win the 9 in a row next year to get to 10 is obviously a 3 year odyssey. Assuming that we're all still playing football around at that point. I'm going to bring everybody through the sports news for the day, and we're starting with the Olympics because Canada has become the first nation to officially withdraw its athletes from the 2020 Olympic Games, sparking further doubt about whether or not the Tokyo Games will go ahead as planned. The Canadian Olympic and Paralympic Committee has said that it's taken the difficult decision to withdraw after consulting athletes, sports groups, and the Canadian government. It comes after the IOC gave itself a 4-week deadline to make a decision on whether or not to postpone the Games, which are due, of course, to begin in July. The board have insisted that cancelling the Games is not on the agenda currently. Postponement is thought to be the most likely outcome, although overnight the Japanese organisers have said again that this won't be postponed or cancelled, but once the countries start pulling out, that's going to be the end of that. And you can tell that the American Track and Field Association came out and said they didn't want to be part of it, and if they don't want to be part of it, then NBC aren't going to spend the billions, and if NBC aren't spending the billions, this thing isn't going to go ahead. So we're just waiting to see exactly how and when that's refixed for. In soccer, SSE Electricity League Premier Division side Bows say they are planning to honour the contracts of players and staff despite the suspension of football activity in Ireland. Cork and Sligo have both reluctantly had to suspend payments to staff in recent days as the financial pressures of the lockdown begin to mount. There are plans to restart the league in mid-June, with Bows saying they will honour the contracts, though the situation will be kept under continuous review. Meanwhile, Toby Alderweireld is donating dozens of electronic tablets to hospitals to help sick people stay in contact with family and friends. He announced the initiative in a social media post at the weekend. He urged people to follow government measures in the fight against coronavirus, and he said he hopes to get as many devices to places where they can help people stay in touch with loved ones. Matt Le Tissier said he believes the Premier League could resume behind closed doors during the coronavirus outbreak. The club's chief executive, Southampton, have suggested showing top flight games live on TV every day while people are in their homes. Overnight, the AFL yesterday afternoon, the AFL in Australia suspended games. They had obviously started their season behind closed doors, but there's now been a lockdown, a much more serious lockdown in Australia than there had been announced previous to that, and interstate travel was banned, so it would have meant that it was impossible for teams to travel. But apparently, there were massive ratings on the Friday night for the match that they actually did play, so you can see that people need stuff to watch when they're at home, and if there was any way to get some sport up and running, a sense of normality might begin to resume. Obviously, assuming when it's safe to do so. The flat season gets underway at Naas Racecourse later on this afternoon. The meeting takes place behind closed doors. The first of a 7-race card goes to post at 2 o'clock. A lot of eyes on Sir Dragonet, who goes in the Devoy Stakes at 4 o'clock. Many people think that the Aidan O'Brien trained Sir Dragonet is a superstar in the making. Here's what we have coming up on the show for you this morning. We're going to do the sports pages right now. Alan Quinlan's going to join us at 8 o'clock. Kelly Harrington is going to talk to us about what she thinks is going to happen with the Olympics and the qualifiers, and also what she made of the people queuing for the chipper in Howth. She tweeted about it last night. I don't know if you've seen that video that somebody took from their car of the queues snaking around the corner for fish and chips. I mean, everybody knows that it's okay to queue, but you've got a queue with 2 metres between you and 2 metres behind you, and it turns out we just can't queue. At the best of times we can't queue, and here we are at the worst of times. We're not being very good at our social distancing, so we'll talk a bit about that around about 8:15 this morning as well. After that, we've got Joey Boland introducing Off the Couch, which is our brand new daily segment where we're going to try and keep you all active. I mean, I know Owen's saying you don't have to do stuff, but this is the type of stuff that won't take you very long and will actually make you feel a good bit better. Get those endorphins going. So Joey Boland, ex-hurler, now obviously runs a gym and is teaching people how to get fit. And then Classic Game Club, Tipperary versus Kilkenny 2014, the greatest game ever played, according to Anthony Daly on Twitter yesterday. What did you make of that, Owen?
Yeah, it's right up there, isn't it? It's certainly the greatest game I think I've ever seen. And I think John Duggan, who'll be joining us later on for that, would certainly go along with that as well. It's hard to think of any moment other than this that kind of sums up peak hurling. It's hard to know if we're still living in peak hurling or not. Probably time will tell, but this was either the beginning or maybe the very peak of it all. Just a perfect game. One of those where you look back on it and think to yourself, that guy is having an all-time brilliant game, possibly one of his best games ever for his county. But the guy who's marking him is also having one of the best games ever for his county. So there's a lot of different contradictions in this, a lot of beautiful contradictions. So it was on TG Cahir yesterday, up on YouTube as well.
Are we going to have to do the replay as well now that we've done this one?
No, I don't think so. I
felt like I was at the end of it. I kind of want to watch the next one now and see exactly how. No, we can talk about that during Classic Game Club if you want, but
we can do. I just think that if you compare the quality of the two games, the replay in 2014 just isn't anywhere as good as the first game. And quality-wise, it probably is right up there. And there was probably a few tactical shifts that swung it Kilkenny's way and personnel shifts. But I just think, I don't know, I just think that drawn game in 2014 just has a special place in everybody's heart. I think that the Hawkeye element of it all, the drama, the individual battles, I just don't think the replay lived up to that. And how could it possibly do?
All right, 087 180 180 is the number you can text us on or WhatsApp us. 087 180 180 is the number to WhatsApp us on. It's time for the papers.
OTB AM.
Okay, so I've got the front page of offtheball.com is you can stick that back up there. Yeah, Alan Shearer had David Ginola up against the wall. Mark Lawrenson joined the lads on Sunday afternoon speaking with Joe Malloy about a proper career retrospective. This is at Newcastle, and Ginola is such a mercurial talent that never quite lived up to all of the things he could do, because there was stuff that he could do with the ball. He was so big and so strong and so powerful that he was completely unstoppable. Liverpool CEO offers club stewards to supermarkets for crowds, so that's football finding ways to get involved and to help things. Brian O'Driscoll made a plea about social distancing. We don't want to end up like Italy, and I think the more people that have this conversation the better, because the message is still clearly not getting through. I think he tweeted that on Friday or Saturday night, and obviously Saturday and Sunday they had to close the car parks because people were going out. I know everybody's really bored, but heading out, and then when you get wherever you're going, standing beside people, not great for us. And then reaction, Diego Maradona, the movie, obviously Channel 4 showed it again on Friday night, I think. I've recorded it. I still haven't seen this. Is it amazing?
Yeah, it's very, very good. Like, it's just so well made. But I think it's a really good piece of journalism as well. Like, we spoke about this quite a bit when it was made, and when it came out last summer, we had Asif Kapadia, the director, in studio actually, and he got a finite number of interviews with Diego Maradona. I think it was 3 conversations he was signed up to have with him, which is obviously a tricky thing when you really are delving into the drug culture which Diego Maradona took part in, everything from the murky underbelly of his life in Naples. That was all covered in the documentary so well, and yet you were coming face to face with this guy on a regular basis to actually interview him for the documentary. So it's got that level of fascination about it, but it's just so slick, so well produced. Like, it's, if you enjoyed Amy or if you enjoyed Senna, you're going to love this, even if you're not a football fan, even if you're not a Maradona fan. And I think even if you aren't a Maradona fan, you might even enjoy it a bit more, because it is a three-dimensional picture of him, which is what you want from a documentary like this.
Going to start with the Irish Independent for you here this morning. Back page of the headline is Coming Out of the Shadows, and that is a picture from Downpatrick yesterday, where the Ulster National was held, and obviously racing today continues in Naas. It's the first day of the flat season officially. IOC attempt to buy time, but Olympic Games edge closer to postponement is the lead story there. And Bows vow to honour players' contracts as they offer solidarity to crisis-hit clubs. Some features inside the paper as well. They're speaking with Shane McNaughton, the former Cushendall hurler who is now an actor.
The Irish Daily Star this morning leads with "You can have my house." This is Connacht star Copeland's amazing gesture to HSE staff. So this is Robin Copeland, who's come out and offered free accommodation to HSE staff in Galway. You've got that Bowes story as well, vowing to pay on. A Kingdom US trip in doubt. So this is Kerry GEA, who may not be able to go on their fundraising trip to the United States this year. The flat season starts at Naas. Ben's Space Invader is a first win. And Olympics to be postponed is how the Irish Daily Star rounds up. The UK version of the Star this morning leads with "Start from scratch. Sorry, cop, but it's the only answer," says Joe Cole. So Joe Cole going with the Karen Brady line that this season should be scrapped if they can't get it played this summer. And legend Pacquiao is not afraid to die in fight against virus, he says.
I see both sides about the seasons. It's like the season that you would lose would be next season, not this one. If you finish this season off, or you would have a truncated season next year. So 2 seasons get ruined. Is the right thing to do not to say this is the end of this year?
But that means you're ruining this season.
I mean, there's a global pandemic. The season got ruined. Everybody goes, fair enough.
Like, yeah, I get that, but you're kind of making the point about ruining 2 seasons or 1 season. At least if you finish this season off at the end of this year, or for like whenever it is, then at least it's not this season getting ruined. Like I don't know. I think that if you started something, you should probably go out of your way to try and finish it within reason, obviously. So if life returns to normality this year, then get the season finished. But obviously, my view on that would change if it's November this year and football still has yet to return. Then I think it's just getting out of hand. It's not within reason. But I think if we somehow manage to have any football this summer, then I think you finish off this season and just have it boxed off and don't have any sort of nonsense about who really won the league or do you really give it to Liverpool or who got relegated, all this sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, you can do. There's ways around all that. Anyway, here's a double-page spread for the Examiner this morning. The strangest week in Irish sporting history is a double-page spread they have over a great piece where they've got all of their writers out talking to people. So, Colin O'Connor speaking to a club. We have Stephen Findlater talking to a player. So the hockey team, obviously the hockey team will qualify for the Olympics. John Fogarty talking to a coach. Everybody has a GPS. We get sent back the data. John Cannon, Galway senior football selector and forwards coach. They have Stephen Barry talking to a League of Ireland team. And Declan Bogue is a really interesting piece where he talks about Stephen Poacher, who obviously we would have known nationally as the coach of the Carlow football team. He's also a teacher at a second level institution in Newry. And so GA, all activity closed. And then in his day job, PE was continuing and he had 60 kids out playing for an hour on a field. And he's like, look at this. And Declan Bogue's written another piece with him, I think in the Independent as well today, where Poacher is rightly pointing out that the advice was completely contradictory. And, you know, this, the British government decision to follow the course that they did at the start of this, well, let's wait and see what the repercussions of that are going to be. It's all pretty grim. Good piece from Jack Anderson today. Sport should know when to fold them and walk away. Obviously, Kenny Rogers died over the course of the weekend. A song very associated with sport. He's saying that racing needs to follow the path of all the other sports and stop at the moment, and that it's difficult to see Tokyo going ahead as well at this point. So I think we're just really waiting for how they're going to suspend the Olympic Games and when it's going to happen or what their target is, whether or not they try and shoehorn it in November, December this year, or if perhaps they just decide to push it back to next summer and see exactly what happens there. What have you got for us next on?
We've got the Mirror next, and it is leading with that IOC story. Stop the games. It says Olympic chiefs finally admit games could be postponed but not cancelled, while legend Lewis says hold them in 2 years' time. We need to talk about the Prem then, as the debate rages on the future. Schneiderlin says we'll play on until August to finish the season. Glenn Murray's been out to say we cannot play on until fans are allowed back. And Joe Cole there again. Sorry, Liverpool. If we can't finish, start again.
Yeah. Look, here's the thing, right? If they can play behind closed doors, as they're planning to do, then I think that's not the worst thing that's ever happened. Assuming, of course, that it's safe to do so, right? Let's just assume that it's absolutely safe, that somehow they've managed to cocoon these athletes away and they're tested constantly the whole way through and they're all put in quarantine for 14 days and they come out of that and it's like, and they're leading these perfectly germ-free lives, which it sounds a little bit pie in the sky, but if they can do that and if in 6 weeks' time football returns and it is behind closed doors, then obviously, if it's safe to do so, then we should do that, right?
You would have thought so. Like, there are so many, when you talk about pie in the sky, I think this is definition of that, but there are so many different eventualities here about where this does end up. Like, is it a situation where things will automatically be fine once this wave and once the spread has stopped, or is it going to be a situation where there is going to be another wave, or that we will have to be uber cautious for a period of time afterwards? Like, is it a situation where footballers may be allowed in a very controlled environment in a few months down the line, but we still can't have any mass gatherings for a long, long time? That could be the case. So perhaps we do need to get used to this possibility of actually having football in empty stadiums when things start to turn back a little bit more towards normality. But the bottom line is that we really don't know, and there are like firm dates sometimes being thrown out. Like the Premier League is still clinging to an idea of, last week it was the start of April. Now, obviously, this has been pushed back by a month or so. That I just don't see how anybody can really stand over any dates with any sort of confidence at the moment, because we just don't know what the hell is going to happen when things clear up, if they're going to clear up, and how soon it is going to happen. So, like it could be a situation actually where you do have a few weeks of a window where things might be okay before another wave, for example. Again, like this has been one of the theories put out there. And is that a situation where you try and wrap up this season and just kind of go back into the trenches then for a while and then start next season a few months later? I don't know. I'm sure these are questions that are going to come up over the next couple of months for sure when Premier League chiefs meet again.
The back page of the London Times, talking about a couple of those stories. There's a picture from the back of Anfield on the day that Liverpool were supposed to win the title. Two schoolboys play out their dreams in the shadow of Anfield on the day Liverpool could have sealed their first title in 30 years against Crystal Palace. And West Ham face battle to play at home. This is an interesting little subtext that's going on here. Matt Lawton and Martin Ziegler are reporting on both these stories in the back page here. West Ham will face stiff opposition from UK Athletics to using the London Stadium for matches if the Premier League season goes beyond the end of June. Top flight football has been put on hold, obviously, until April the 30th at the earliest because of coronavirus, meaning games could be played in July when the anniversary games are expected to be held at the club's London Stadium. Now, this is all that's our stadium for July, not yours, when stuff is going to go ahead. Let's wait and see if the anniversary games are going ahead in July. But anyway, West Ham insists a clause in their contract with the stadium owner gives them first option, but UK Athletics said yesterday that athletics has priority. So nothing like a petty squabble as the global pandemic rips through a country to expose exactly who has some sense of priority. IOC in talks to delay games. This is the general consensus that while they're insisting everything on the surface is going ahead as planned, that actually there's no chance of these Olympic Games going ahead. So, as they had insisted they would. I have the Guardian for you next, if I can just. So there's an ad for Tesco on the back page there, and Rory Best is the back page lead on the Guardian this morning. You developed this chip on your shoulder, Rory Best, on insecurity, being captain of Ireland and the future. And Olympic deadline set. IOC has 4 weeks to decide, but postponement is likely. That's the consensus coming from that. Haven't had a chance yet to look through the Rory Best interview, but I will over the course of the morning, and we'll come back to you with some of the highlights from that. What have you got for us next, Owen?
The Irish Sun goes with Olympics on the brink. IOC admit games face delay. Ruby backs Irish racing. Roberto's Italy payment, a photograph there, Roberto Mancini. And Fellaini positive. That story emerging over the course of the weekend that Marouane Fellaini has tested positive for COVID-19.
The Irish Times next. I've got this for you here, and it is Tokyo 2020 postponement looks increasingly likely. It's the headline over Ian Reardon's piece. And Lyons backs HRI decision to continue racing. Top trainer Gerald Lyons believes racing here is just one positive coronavirus test away from coming to a halt, but has backed the sport continuing behind closed doors for as long as possible. Are there any... Cheltenham was an own goal, but don't forget Cheltenham was an English game, not ours. Our lads partook. The own goal on our part was what they did when they came home. You shouldn't have been told to self-isolate, and some of them didn't. If people think it's an own goal going ahead at Thurles yesterday, Downpatrick today, or Naas tomorrow, they don't understand the business. What we're doing is 20 jockeys going racing to keep a livelihood. It's horses running. There will be betting on that. You're not saving the world, but you're keeping going. I think it means they should have been told to self-isolate. And some of them didn't. Fellaini test positive for COVID-19, so that's the Marouane Fellaini story that you've already spoken about there, and Malky Clarkin has a column. What does post-COVID normality even look like? When will we think it's okay to shake hands again, or to hug a friend you haven't seen for a while, or yes, God bless us and save us all, when will it be okay to go out for a pint? Maybe we should get used to a culture of drinking on the streets and shouting to each other from across the road.
Yeah, but like... This is going to be possibly something that has long-lasting impact. Like, will it be a situation where, like, we just take unbelievable care about every single communication we have with other people down the line? I think it might do. I think certain people will certainly be taking things very, very seriously from now on when it comes to things like handshaking, close communication, all that sort of thing. So probably we've got to get used to a different way of certainly socializing when this whole thing is allows us to get back out of the house again. I'm going to bring you the Financial Times this morning. A picture from Madrid is the main photograph, but it just is also carrying that Olympic Games story as well. Olympics faces postponement of up to 2 years as pressure mounts in Tokyo. So this is the other thing at play here as well, that somebody broke ranks from the Olympic Council a couple of weeks ago and said it could be 2021 or 2022, I should say, before the Olympics are actually carried out. So it may not be next summer. It may not be the end of this year. They would push it back by a few months. It could be a 2-year postponement, given all the different governing bodies at play and all the different sports at play. So I want to keep an eye on for sure. 4 weeks is the deadline they've given themselves.
And why the whole point about 2 years? Is it what would prevent them from doing a year? The 2 years gets everybody out of the woods and understands exactly what's going to happen. There would have been a world championship in most sports in 2 years after the Olympics anyway. Is that the thinking, or is there a rationale behind it?
There wasn't really. It was a situation where somebody kind of spoke out of turn. And this was, I guess, something that the IOC weren't exactly delighted with. Like, you have a World Athletics Championships next year, though, is the thing. And like, I don't want to say that athletics is the most important sport in the Olympics, but it's hugely important. And like, with World Athletics Championships next year, perhaps they felt that 2022 would be the next kind of available time, if that's already sort of semi set in stone. So yeah, I don't know, but maybe 2 years is kind of like the maximum sort of window they can give themselves within reason. So like, my question, like, why have they given themselves 4 weeks? Like, I certainly hope that 4 weeks is a window rather than a target. I hope it's not a situation that they're sitting on their hands saying, well, let's give it this 4 weeks, see if this calms down over in Europe, rather than saying to themselves, right, 4 weeks should allow us enough time to logistically plan to actually postpone this thing.
Yeah, I mean, you assume it's a little bit of both, like hoping for some divine intervention at some level. The Racing Post this morning, they're back in the flat at Nice, and it's a column from David Jennings at the front there talking about that. Glittering Dubai World Cup meeting cancelled very late in the day as well. And their back page, lockdown in Australia puts remaining fixtures at risk. So that's the end of sport in Australia. The back page of the Telegraph sports section, sports to hold crisis talks on virus impact. That's Players' Union fears spike in mental health problems. Cases expected to rise due to wage cuts and job losses. Fellaini and 2 English clubs return positive tests. Marouane Fellaini and 2 English clubs at Portsmouth. 4 players have contracted the disease, and Leyton Orient ordered their staff home following a positive test for one of their players. So it's literally everywhere at the moment. You've got an Irish news for us, Owen?
Yeah, it's Mickey Hart echoing the calls for changes in behaviour to ease impact of COVID-19. He's been speaking to the Irish News. He says, we take our lifestyle for granted, we take our employment for granted, so we need to just think, yes, it will be a disruption. It will be asking questions of us to do things that we don't normally do. And then you've got that story as well. John Hartson thinks Rangers should concede the Premiership title to Celtic.
Yeah, we'll do a bit more on that a little bit later on for you. It's 4 minutes past 8 this Monday morning here on OTB AM. Still got a packed show to come for you. Kelly Harrington, Joey Boland, Classic Game Club, and we're back with Alan Quinlan straight after these.